Welcome everyone. This is our meeting of Mount Alexander Shire Council, special meeting. It's Wednesday the 3rd of November 2021. Here submitters to the proposed sale and leasing of council land. We have to start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public by electronic media, including YouTube. Okay, item 1 on the agenda. Present, we have councillors Anir, Driscoll, McClure, Maltby and Cordy in the chamber. We have Councillor Christine Henderson via Zoom, and we have an apology for Councillor Gardner. So that's the only apology at this point in time. Councillors, declaration of interest and conflicts of interest. Nothing to report. Thank you for that. Okay, first item on the agenda for us to consider this evening is item 4.1.1 to consider submissions to propose disposal of former Wesleyan Church, a former community centre at 205 Main Road, Chiltern. I'll go through the summary. In 2017, Council resolved to subdivide the land at 201 Main Road, Chiltern, to separate the former Wesleyan Church from the Sunday School Hall to enable the sale of the former church building. The Local Government Act 2020 requires that prior to selling any land, Council must publish notice of its intention and undertake a community engagement process in accordance with their community engagement policy. A community engagement plan for the disposal of land has been developed that aligns with the previous processes under the Local Government Act 1989, specifically that Council seeks and considers input to its decision making prior to disposing of land and property. Due to the passage of time since Council's resolution, a fresh public notice was published on 10th of August 2021. 45 submissions have been received and 2 submitters have indicated they wish to speak in support of their submission at a special meeting of Council. That's this meeting. Following consideration of all submissions received, Council will decide whether to dispose of the land at 205 Main Road, Chiltern, at the meeting of Council 21st December 2021. Councillors, have a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 hears from submitters who have requested to speak to Council in support of their submission regarding the proposal to dispose of the land at 205 Main Road, Chiltern, formerly part of 201 Main Road, Chiltern, formerly the Wesleyan Church, former community centre, and 2, considers all submissions prior to determining whether to uphold the existing Council resolution and dispose of the land at the meeting of Council 21st of December 2021.
I have a second for that, councillors. Councillor Driscoll, all those in favour?
Yeah, thank you very much for your help. Take it easy, yeah.
Being no objection, I declare the matter carried. Thank you for that. Now, in terms of this item before us, we were to have 2 presenters speak to us this evening, but I've received late advice that they're not going to address the meeting this evening. So in view of that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you. 4.1.2 of the minutes, councillors, or the agenda. Consider submissions to proposed lease of council land at 20 McGrath Street, Castlemaine, which is part of the Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve, to Optus Proprietary Limited for a telecommunications facility. Council is proposing to lease part of the land at the Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve to Optus for the construction of a telecommunications facility. The Local Government Act 2020 requires that prior to leasing land for 10 years or more, council must undertake a community engagement process in accordance with its adopted community engagement policy in respect of the proposal before entering into the lease. A community engagement plan for the disposal of land has been developed, stipulating a process for community engagement that aligns with the previous processes under the Local Government Act 1989, specifically the council seeks and considers its decision making prior to disposing of land and property. Public notice was published on 6 July 2021, inviting submissions to the proposal. 28 submissions have been received, with 6 people indicating they or an agent wish to speak in support of their submission before council. All submissions are opposed to the proposed lease. Following this meeting and consideration of all submissions received, council will decide whether to lease part of the land at the Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve, 20 McGrath Street, Castlemaine, at the meeting of council 21st December 2021. Councillors, I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Anir.
I move that council 1 hears from submitters who have requested to speak to council in support of their submission regarding the proposal to lease council land at 20 McGrath Street, Castlemaine, part of Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve, to Optus Proprietary Limited for a telecommunications facility, and 2, considers all submissions prior to determining whether to lease the land at the meeting of council on 21st December 2021.
Thanks for that, Councillor Neer. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McClure. Councillors, all those in favour? There being no objection, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. We will now hear from submitters. Governance, do we have Mr. Greg Pankey? Thank you. No, I guess this. There you go. Yep, thank you.
My name is Greg Plank. I live at McGrath Street in Castlemaine, just directly across from the Oakdale Oval. And I am going to actually ask a little bit of extra time, if possible. I know that's at the discretion of the chair, because this is really more for also the recently elected councillors who weren't party to what transpired in this process. So I have the opportunity now to inform you about what was taking place. When the action group was formed in 2018, freedom of information from John Taylor was acquired. There was no charge for his looking out for information for us and also for copying. He said because it was in the public interest. Never a true comment made. It was 38 pages. Optus made a submission to council to place the monopole of Camp Reserve in early 2016, which council rejected due to Camp Hill being of heritage significance and the birthplace of Castlemaine. There was no master plan at that time, but it is now. There were 64 objections lodged at council and a petition of 151 signatures was collected in 7 days from concerned Castlemaine residents. Once it was revealed with freedom of info, the council staff decided to correct and make alterations to the terms of the agreement from the Camp Reserve proposal to the Dovetail Oval at Wesley Hill. The question was asked of the 2 panellist Optus reps and council at the objective meeting held on October 2018 as to when and how office view the flight towers are to be installed as part of the master plan. No reply from either. You won't find anything in the master plan, any mention of a telecommunications tower as part of that master plan. We sort of questioned a little bit of code of conduct. We didn't really think that was probably council or council officers' responsibility to direct telco ready body over to another area as such once they were denied access to the capital reserve. It's just thing about plans, you know, I always look at Einstein, so you never have a plan, and nothing can go wrong. But plans are put in place, and sometimes when the decision is wrong, it's wrong. To place telecommunications on the ductile oval is wrong and inappropriate. Optus will get their tower to not there. It will cause a nuisance to all that use the oval. And using that word nuisance, that's a legal term. Very few people received in the mail from the council town planner notification of the proposal. And when he was questioned at the objectives meeting that many more were going to be impacted, he replied, I don't have control over the mail. What a poor response. They used to have control over the mail, but the letters were never sent out in the first place. Further to this, he sent me a letter dated the 17th December 2018, where he commented in that note that, I'll give a clarification about the towers. The fourth tower will be a telecommunications tower, will be. I then heard him make an assumption that nothing gone through council anymore. That was true. If it's about money, which it is, in communication with council, we were being told that a significant saving to the ratepayers would be met because the office were at the times they are going to put the monopole in place as the fourth tower, and we were going to save a certain amount of money. It just so happened on the Wednesday night, going back a couple of years ago, I went across to the Ovals and I saw the lights were being turned on for the first time. And I just happened to meet the engineering consultant, directing the lights and so forth over the 3 towers. And I had to say to you, I know there was a $400,000 budget. There was $250,000 from the state government. There was $100,000 from the community groups, which obviously the sporting groups. And I said to him, $100,000 for the pole. And he said, oh, no. 75,000. And he said, that's rivers, that's the pole, the lights, the underground cabling, switch boxes, everything. I'm no mathematician, council, but that's $225,000. The money was there. This leaves $175,000 still played. This was released in the media and the council about those grants. Worry concern was a spokesperson for the sporting community and the freedom of information. The communication council said he was in agreement to the deal. Rather strange terminology, I would have thought. Relating to the Optus tower, could they place a visible shield underneath the antenna due to radiation concerns onto the oval? I know the person, but I won't name.
Well, it's
I'll just push on that. On the 17th of July 2019, the application amended for the Optus tower to be relocated near the water tanks. This was always, there was only ever 2 options. It was over the Ross Avenue or the water tanks, but subsequently there was so much opposition to it that doesn't change anything. Moving a pole from there doesn't change the objections that people had. Interesting to know that Optus had proved 2 private landowners without being able to come to agreement. Place of infrastructure on a little tower to the lack of space that even approach the IGA supermarket to do so.
I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, Greg. Councillors, do you have any questions for Greg, please? Yep. Councillor Bristol.
When you mentioned the letter, someone mail sent you the letter. Are you talking about the
Town planner.
town planner? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do you own a mobile phone?
I do.
And how far is it away from the tower?
How far away is it?
Now, how far away do you live from the tower?
I'll probably live around about 250, maybe 300 metres.
The base tower. Okay. Yes.
Other councillors? Councillor Henderson, I can't see you. If you have any questions for Greg before I let him go?
No, I don't. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks for that, councillor Henderson. Thanks for your submission, Greg.
Thank
Okay.
you. Part of it.
Sorry.
Even that was part of it.
You had
Quite
quite a bit over the allocated time, so
Well, I asked.
Thanks very much,
I asked for
Greg.
extended time. If you can do it, so.
yes.
Well, we did. They did give you extended time.
So thanks very much, Greg.
Thank you.
I'll now invite Carl Kloss. Yep.
Do I need to leave this on to talk? Thank you. Thank you all. My name's Carl. I live at Treasure Street, Wesley Hill. I'm here today to speak my truth, my family's truth, and my community's truth, as I know it. There is much data, papers, and research on mobile phone towers and the levels of radiation and potential health risks that they generate. I've read papers stating there is no more radiation at ground level from a mobile phone tower than there is from using a mobile phone. I've also read a peer-reviewed journal article from 2019, which concluded that for adolescent school children, exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields from a mobile phone tower was associated with delays in fine and gross motor skills, spatial working memory, and attention in school. It really seems to me that you can pull data and studies to make a valid argument for or against the health impacts of living near a mobile phone tower. This leads me to believe there is no conclusive evidence that exposure to or residing next to or near a mobile phone tower is absolutely safe. No conclusive evidence that it's absolutely safe. Due to this, I'd like us all here to think about the future. The proposed lease is for 21 years. Let's think about that for a moment. 21 years, that's a long time. What does 21 years look like for me, my family, and the families that live in Wesley Hill? Well, in 21 years, I'll be about to turn 60. My 6-year-old daughter will be 27. My 1-year-old son will be 22. My parents are very likely to be dead, and I doubt that any of you here will be seated on this council. Castlemaine will continue to grow, and Wesley Hill will have developed into a sporting hub of Central Victoria. It has amazing facilities. I don't know of any other ones around it in Central Victoria. Think of all the kids who come to Wesley Hill to train for sport, play their sport, walk their dog, ride their bike, learn to roller skate, and so on. Think of this times 21 years. In the 6 years since my family has moved here, within a 7-house distance from our home, we've seen 3 more young families moving. Our neighbours comment about how wonderful it is to see so many young children in the area. Think of these families. Think of these children living, playing, sleeping next to a mobile phone tower. Think of 21 years of their lives, their major developmental milestones. Living, playing, sleeping next to a mobile phone tower. Think of the stress that comes with 21 years of worrying, 21 years of not knowing, are we safe? Are our children safe? Now think what I said about at the start, studies that show associated developmental delays for adolescent children who went to school near a mobile phone tower. Think about what you would want for your children, your friends and family's children, your community's children. I'll be about 10 more seconds if that's all right. We, the local community, do not want to live next to this tower. We don't want 21 years of exposure to the potential dangers of this tower. We want the tower to go somewhere else, somewhere non-residential. And if you cannot guarantee that this tower is not capable of causing harm to even one member of this community, of our community, then you should not want it here either. I urge you to vote against the proposed 21-year lease for a mobile phone tower. I urge you to vote in favour of your local community. I urge you to give us 21 years of peace. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Carl. If you just wait for a moment, councillors may have some questions for you. Councillors, any questions for Carl, please? Councillor Henderson?
Oops. No, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Henderson. Thank you very much for your submission, Carl. No questions. Governance, do we have Nola Birch in the waiting room?
Mayor Cordy, I have only one other speaker in the waiting room, and that's Carmela Leone.
Okay, so can you put Carmela Leone on via Zoom and we'll give her submission. Here's submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carmela. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Carmela.
Hi, sorry, well, I thought I was on mute, sorry.
Right, it's Tony Cordy, the Mayor speaking. You would like to hear your submission now. Thank you.
Okay, so there are 4 of us, so we'll just go in order of our submission. Good evening, I'm Sue Anderson. And the following 4 oral submissions have been advised by our barrister. The proposed contract between the council and Optus would pose serious questions of law as to the legality of the contract, and further, whether such an agreement could risk the council becoming complicit in criminal acts. The Optus base station antenna will facilitate the irradiation of non-ionising electromagnetic radiation into the environs and upon the residences of surrounding homes. My family and I will be exposed to radiation once the facility is turned on and becomes active. My partner, Glenn Dyson, is unwell and cannot make it today. He has been advised by his medical practitioner of the adverse health consequences and serious risks associated with the exposure to microwave technology whilst living in close proximity to a mobile phone tower. Emissions from the proposed facility pose an extreme risk of harm to his health. The environmental EME report is a public admission from Optus that it intends to irradiate our home within the irradiation zone with electromagnetic radiation. My residence at 14 Scotts Avenue, Castlemaine, Victoria 3450 is situated approximately 170 metres from the proposed telecommunications facility, which is well within Optus's proposed 500-metre radiation zone. If the council joins forces with Optus under contract to irradiate my family, then such an action may also render our residence uninhabitable due to electromagnetic radiation contamination. I do not consent to Optus and the council exposing, irradiating, touching and penetrating the bodies of my family and I whilst in the confines of our residence. I am of the firm belief that any electromagnetic radiation energy emitted from the proposed telecommunications facility will expose my family and I to violence and risk harm to our health and safety. I firmly believe that the council has a duty to ensure that electromagnetic radiation in its control does not touch and penetrate our skin and our bodies without our consent. The APANSA and the International Commission for Non-Ionising Radiation Protection, ICNIRP, and also the WHO state that non-noising electromagnetic radiation touches and penetrates the skin to the depth of approximately 1 centimetre. The non-consensual touching and penetration of our bodies with electromagnetic radiation and without our consent would constitute an assault pursuant to Section 31 of the Crimes Act 1958. Assault is an indictable offence which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years imprisonment. Assault means a direct or indirect application of force to another person. Application of force includes that of heat, light, electric current, or any other form of energy, and application of matter in solid, liquid, or gaseous form. Further, the same definition of assault is found in Section 6 of the Personal Safety Intervention Orders Act 2010. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Just hang on the line for a moment. Councillors, any questions for Sue, please? Looks like everybody's happy. Sue, thank you for sticking.
Thank you very much.
On, we've got the next speaker.
Sure, so I'm Carmela Leone, and following on. The council may consider its conduct lawful, justified and excused by law, excuse me, as long as they follow the ARPANSA standards, the Telecommunications Act and planning scheme approvals. But we've sought legal advice, which advises that the touching of our persons or property with radiation without our consent is neither lawful, justified nor excused by law. The Telecommunications Act 1997 provides no immunity whatsoever for liability concerning the offence of assault,
to the council and its public officers. If the council and its public officers who, after having been put on notice as to the risk of harm to health, decide to ignore that risk and enter into an agreement with Optus to proceed to emit electromagnetic radiation onto the public, this results in assault, and such an action might define certain parties as conspiring to commit an offence under Section 321 of the Crimes Act 1958. The council, as the owner of the land, would be deemed to be in control of the land and is ultimately responsible for anything that emanates from that land. So via our submissions, the council is made aware that if the electromagnetic radiation touches and penetrates a person without their consent, it would result in a criminal assault. Joining forces with Optus to effect such an illegal act might define the council and its agents as belonging to a joint criminal enterprise. It could be said that if a contract is entered into with Optus, that such a contract evidences the common intention of both parties to prosecute an unlawful common purpose in conjunction with one another, and that in the prosecution of such a purpose, an offence will be committed of such a nature that its commission will be a probable consequence of the prosecution of such purpose. In belonging to a joint criminal enterprise, each party will be deemed to have committed the offence. Now, it's obvious to the common man that the purpose of the tower on the council land facilitates the irradiation of electromagnetic radiation from its land into the neighbouring environment and onto neighbours and members of the public occupying that environment. So this submission effectively puts the council on notice of potential criminal liability. Therefore, if the council ignores this submission and signs a contract with Optus, it cannot then say that it did not know the consequences of the common purpose upon others and its possible criminality. In essence, if a contract is signed between the council and Optus, it will provide clear evidence of the parties having formed the common intention in conjunction with each other to prosecute an unlawful common purpose in allowing the tower to emit electromagnetic radiation from council land. And the probable consequence of such is to cause criminal harm. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Carmela. We've got a question here from Councillor Maltby.
How far do you live from where it's proposed?
I live within, I've looked on a map, and if it's precise, 500 metres.
500 metres.
I mean, Britton Street.
Right.
Thanks for that, Carmela. I've got another question from Councillor McClure.
Thank you, Carmela, for your submission. Has the legal advice that you've had been forwarded on to council?
Yeah, it has. It's parts of it are throughout my submission. Certainly, it's in Glenn Dyson's submission predominantly, but I'm pretty sure I put some stuff into mine as well. But if you look at Glenn Dyson's submission,
yeah, I have his submission in front of it, but I didn't know whether that was the full extent of the advice or just parts of it. So it would be good to have the full extent of the advice if it was possible, please.
Yeah. Yes. So do you want our you mean the submissions that we have tonight? Would you like that forwarded to you?
Now, I've got copies of your submissions, and there's part of the legal advice in that. I've got Glenn's submission, Glenn Dyson's submission, and it's got quite a bit in it about the legal advice you had.
Yes.
What I'm saying is I'm not sure whether that's all the legal advice that you had, and I would be interested in reading that if it's available to us, if that's possible.
Just a minute. That's all of the legal advice. Is that your understanding in Glenn's?
Yeah.
Yeah, we believe that's all the legal advice in Glenn's document.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Other questions, councillors? Looks like everyone's happy. Carmela, have you got anyone else to speak on the matter with you?
Thank you. Got two more people.
Hi, I'm Nola Birch, and I'm going to read from my document here. A contract entered into with the object of committing an illegal act will not be enforced. This principle applies not only to a contract entered into with the object of infringing a statute, but also to a contract to infringe a common law rule. If both parties possess the intent, then the contract is in fact a criminal conspiracy. Such a contract is clearly illegal. This principle is established in a number of cases, and what it means in this instance is that if the tower is constructed and then is turned on to emit electromagnetic radiation that touches and penetrates others against the statutes such as the Crimes Act 1958 Victoria, then that contract could be deemed illegal. It could be said that a contract to lease land to Optus would indicate council entered into a conspiracy to assault people with electromagnetic radiation. Conspiracy is an offence in its own right and can be continuous if the statute is designed to protect the public. A contract in contravention of it will generally be regarded as prohibited. A contract can only be described as illegal if the degree of impropriety is great, generally shown by the commission of a criminal offence. A contract which involves the commission of a legal wrong will be illegal if entered into with the intent of committing the wrong. This rule of public policy extends to the commission of a common law or statutory crime or a civil wrong. Where the contract is such that it cannot be performed without a violation of the law, it would seem that the contract is illegal, whether the parties knew the law or not. The APANZA regulatory authority comes under Commonwealth law, not Victorian criminal law. Merely following the APANZA standard does not give Optus nor the council authority to commit a crime in this state under the Crimes Act 1958 Victoria. Optus and council will not comply with the safety standard at all if they knowingly and intentionally fail to adequately address the health and safety risks as raised by Glenn Dyson's medical practitioner. The Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association, or ORSA, recommend a precautionary approach with regard to exposure to artificial electromagnetic radiation. The ORSA has drafted a very informative letter designed to educate and warn councils Australia-wide. The ORSA database is one of the largest in the world, and contained with the ORSA letter to council is information that shows that 68% of all the studies in its database show biological effects occur during exposure of EMR, whilst only 24% of studies show no adverse effects of EMR exposure. This suggests quite clearly that the overwhelming scientific consensus is that EMR does indeed affect health. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thanks for your submission, Nola. We'll just find out if councillors have any questions for you. Councillors?
Sure.
Councillor Driscoll has a question for you, Nola.
Yes.
Nicola, are all your legal threats and innuendo coming from the same source?
Yes.
Okay. And did you pay for that source?
Sorry?
You paid funds for that source? Did you pay for your lawyer?
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Nola. Councillor Mulvey's got a question.
How far would the tower be from your, how far from the tower is your residence?
We're not sure the actual distance, but we're moving into Taylor Street, is it?
Yeah, Taylor Street.
Yeah, Taylor Street. Number 1 Taylor Street.
500 metres.
It's less than 500 metres.
Right, thank you.
Thanks very much for your submission this evening, Nola.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Michael Gersh, and I'll continue with the submission. Public officers, such as councillors and employees of councils, may believe that they are immune from lawsuits as per their actions and decisions, but they can be individually sued for negligence, nuisance, and misfeasance whilst in public office, if the results of the harm caused by their actions or inactions were foreseeable. The tort of misfeasance in public office applies only to those holding public office, and the only occasions on which it can be committed are those in which public office holders misuse their public power. It also permits an individual such as myself to recover for the loss or damage suffered consequent upon action taken by the holder of a public office. Public officials may be liable where they act or fail to act beyond power, fail to fulfil a public duty of care, and are actuated by malice in the sense of intent to injure, knowing that their act is beyond power and ought to know injury will follow. or act blindly with reckless disregard of the legality and consequences of their act. While Optus and Apanza contend that there is no established evidence of health effects, the law courts and other authorities have held otherwise. You were provided with a medical report by Dr. Russell Cooper, the legal opinion of Barrister Raymond Broomhall, the environmental EMR report, RFN SA number 3450009. For the sake of transparency, we will table them again. Now, we haven't been able to actually do that because we're not present to do that, but the documents are all present with the council at the moment. We have made it clear that we do not consent to be touched and penetrated by either Optus or this council. We have provided you with an expose of the criminality of touching and penetrating our bodies in our homes and the legal and authoritative evidence of health effects caused by radiation. Installing the mobile base station with the clear intention of turning it on to irradiate our families without our consent would constitute an assault. Council has been provided with medical advice that shows an extreme risk of harm. We have been advised by a legal practitioner that such intention by you to proceed to irradiate us with the clear knowledge of our withdrawal of consent is indeed unlawful. To avoid criminal complicity, misconduct, and the illegality of contract, we submit that the council does not enter into contractual relations with Optus to lease council land. You may have your own legal advice that goes against ours and decide to proceed, but you do so at your own peril. We ask that the council adopt the precautionary principle. If there is scientific uncertainty, then you have a duty to act with caution. Please do not enter into a contract with Optus to lease the council land at McGrath Street. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Michael. Councillors, do you have any questions? Got a question from Councillor Maltby, Michael.
How far would you be from the proposed tower?
Well, it would be less than 500 metres.
So what street?
Taylor Street.
Thanks.
Thanks for that, Michael. Other councillors, any further questions? But no further questions, Michael. So thank you very much for your presentation this evening and all of your cohort there.
Thank you.
So councillors, that brings us to the end. I don't think we've got anyone else in the waiting room, have we, governance?
No, Mayor Cordy, no one else in the waiting room.
Thanks very much for that. That being the case, I declare the meeting closed. So thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, directors and CEO, and thank